Hello, and welcome to another episode of Just Jesus. One of the things that I have long admired about Jesus was that he got straight to the point. There was no idle chit chat with Jesus. Now, there would be times that he would ask questions to probe an individual's motive and get them to think about why they were doing things or why they were asking him questions. But for the most part, he just cut to the chase, got right to the point. And there's a conversation recorded by Luke in chapter 9 where Jesus and some of his disciples are going toward Jerusalem. And Luke tells us as they were going along the road, someone said to Jesus, I will follow you wherever you go. And Jesus said to him, Foxes have holes and birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. And then Jesus says to somebody else there who is there, Follow me. But the individual replied, Lord, let me first go and bury my father. To which Jesus said to him, Leave the dead to bury their own dead. But as for you, go and proclaim the kingdom of heaven. And then another individual said to Jesus, I will follow you, Lord, but first let me say farewell to those at my home. And Jesus said to him, No one who puts his hand to the plow and looks back is fit for the kingdom of God. Now, Jesus is not saying if you want to be my disciple, you have to become homeless and that you can't go to a funeral of a loved one, family member, and that you can't go and say goodbye to the folks at home. That's not his point. His point, it seems to me, is if you're going to be a disciple, you're either all in or you're not. There's no halfway being a disciple of Jesus. There's no, well, I'll be a disciple when it's convenient. But when it gets difficult, then I'm not going to be one. But I still want to be considered one. If you're a disciple of Jesus, you're either all in or you're out. There's no in between. It's an all or nothing proposition. And Jesus wants these individuals to understand that up front. The individual who says, I will follow you. The two individuals who says, I will follow you. Jesus says, you better be careful. You need to understand what you're getting yourself into. Now, that last one, no one who puts his hand to the plow and looks back is fit for the kingdom of God, is interesting to me because about 30 some odd years ago, I lived in central Kentucky outside of a little town called Lawrenceburg. And we lived on about 23 acres of land. And it had some woods on it, but there was also a lot of open ground that needed to be mowed at least a couple of times a year. And I wanted to put in a big garden. And so one of my neighbors who had been a farmer for years and years and years, I went to him and got some advice, and he helped me to pick out a used tractor and a bush hog and a plow and a disc harrow. And he showed me how to hook them up to the tractor and how to operate the implements. And so when I got ready to plow the garden spot, he told me to get at one end of the garden and then pick out a point, a tree or a fence post or something out there in the distance. And when I started plowing, to keep my eye on that. And so I did. I started off, but again, I had this verse in mind. And so I kind of wondered, exactly what it meant in real life, if you will. And so about halfway down, I took my eye off the fence post or whatever I was looking at, and I turned around to see how well the plow was plowing, if you will. And sure enough, I began to veer away from the mark that I was headed toward. And I thought, okay, now I understand what that means in practical terms. And I think what it means in practical terms and what Jesus is telling this individual, don't take your eye off me. If you're going to be my disciple, don't take your eye off me. Don't look away. Keep your eye on me. And that's great advice for those of us who claim to be his disciple. Don't take our eyes off Jesus. Be all in. Go at it with all of our heart. And don't take our eyes off the good Lord, who was willing to leave heaven and come to this earth and give his life for us. Understand the commitment that you've made and be sure that we're fulfilling that as best we can. Well, I pray that you'll have a great day.